you guys tossed out in your groups? Like, what are some things you have to think about? Yell it out. No touching. No touching? You say no touching. That's okay, you did. Here's what I'm talking about.
We
We don't have what to talk about.
I didn't talk about you. It's mostly you. Guys. Well, yeah, we talk about like not only like physical boundaries, but like emotional boundaries as well, like attachment wise.
Okay, so emotional boundaries. Like give me some examples. Like what don't you want to be sharing emotionally? Or kind of keep yourself.
Well, I think what you mentioned earlier was like planning the future in depth. You know, like before you have that committed relationship. You know?
Okay.
Because that's like, I don't know, it sucks if you break up and like you talk about like having 3 kids on a barnyard or something like that.
Especially on a barnyard. That's crazy. Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, like all the girls were like, oh yeah, I know I'm getting married, and then we're gonna like do this, and you're gonna get a job here, and then we're gonna have kids, and like, yeah, it really doesn't. If you think about what happens if that girl gets married to another guy afterwards, right? And that guy like, goes to your AIM logs or whatever. You're like, dang, you like totally planned your life with this guy before me. Kind of sucks. All right. So planning your future, yeah, keep that emotional boundary. All right, give me one more.
I remember Lewis told like the youth group before, like he said when he's dating, he doesn't want to do anything to his girlfriend because she's going to be someone's wife in the future, not necessarily his. Yeah. I don't know what kind of boundary that is though.
That's a good principle to keep in mind as we do this. I like that. Okay. Here we go. This is one more for your emotional boundaries. I like to hear from a girl, because this is pertaining to girls especially. Come on.
However, I know guys who are emotionally attached.
That's true. Guys are very emotional.
It's just not as apparent on the surface level.
All right, I'm going to go with my wife. Carmen, what do you think?
Oh. I think a lot of girls nowadays G-chatting. Like when you're up until 2 a.m. G-chatting with the same guy every day, that's a problem just because you are sharing, especially somebody who's not your boyfriend or something like that. That's usually how something starts. And usually for girls it's like, oh, well, they're my friend. Like, what a nice, caring person. And for the guy who's staying until 2 a.m. Chatting with you, it's not the same message. So I think, and even if you're dating too, I think that when you're dating, there is expected to be some level of emotional commitment and sharing, but to the extent that you're, and I think just G-chatting or talking on the phone, that does a lot of that.
I just made this word up right now. I'm not even sure I'm spelling this word right.
No, it's not spelled right.
What is it?
One less T.
One less T? Okay.
On the end.
Yeah, on the end.
Here's one of my ideas that I'm pretty serious about. I think social commitment, meaning you don't want to be tied together as if oh my gosh, my husband, I have to talk to this person every day at night, and I'll get upset at you if I'm online, you're not online, or I call you, don't pick up. Okay, that's crossing the line. All right, that really is. And I know in your mind, either you yourself or your friends you have done this. Right? Oh my gosh, why doesn't he talk to me? We're supposed to be talking to me every day. Be careful. I think the relationship is at a dangerous level when you get to that point. Right? When you start placing your needs on that person. Right? Almost putting a hold in that person's life. Saying hey, I have this part of your life I reserved out for myself. You need to be responsible to me. Okay? That's something you can do in your marriage. Right? So for example, for me and Carmen, if Carmen needs to talk to me, right? Honestly, under the covenant of marriage, right, the vows I give to Carmen, right, I should stop what I'm doing and devote time to Carmen. Right? I have an obligation to do that. If you're dating, there's no such obligation. Right? And if you put an obligation like that on somebody else, it's a really dangerous place to be. Right? It's a really dangerous place to be. Okay, let's talk. Actually, let's see. Is there any more for emotional? Some guys. Let me put some guys. Emotional boundaries. Justin, you want to help it out?
No. Don't play MASH? I don't know.
Anybody? John, what do you think? You got opinions on this?
Trying to keep boundaries.
Okay.
Let's do one more. I think for guys, plan the future, social. Man, this pen is okay. Social commitment, but I also think just I want to use another word for this. I'm going to explain it first before I write it out. So I'm going to talk it out first. With social commitment, meaning like reserving time out of the day for that person, but also to keep healthy relationships with other people. Okay, I think that's really important to keep healthy relationships with other people. Some people are really domineering. Some people are really like, okay, now that you're like talking to me, don't talk to anybody else. All right, like pretty much our friendship is exclusive. Like from now on, like I like own your time. So like I'm gonna get crazy jealous if you talk to another girl and like if you like da 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 da. Okay, that is over the bounds. Okay, it really is. First of all, because so I'm gonna say let's say you're in a dating relationship, right? If a person says like if a person's always jealous all the time, okay, that's kind of a dangerous place to be. When you guys have feelings of jealousy in the relationship, kind of means you're taking it too far, right? It kind of means you're taking it to the point where like you pretty much feel this person's like covenanted to you, right? Where it's like it's almost as it's a sin if that person like dates another person, which is not, because it's a dating relationship. I mean, I'm not saying that you should while you're dating somebody else date like 10 people at the same time, right? Because what you're doing, you're sinning against the other person, right? Because the other person expects a certain level out of the commitment out of you that you're not giving to that person. That you're basically just sinning against the person, right? But you're not sinning against marriage. Okay? So there's a distinction. So I'm going to write this out. You can sin against the other man.
Another 10, man.
Does it have to be black?
Yes. Sin.
Oh, it's terrible.
Okay. Sin is also blue. Right? I think we have to make something clear. One is sinning against another person. So for example, like I tell you, like, hey, so let's make it like a big deal. Like I have a plane to like Paris, right? And can you pick me up from this time and like so you can take me to the airport? Okay, sure. Next day you're sitting outside the curb, friend doesn't come, and you're like, hey, where you at? Like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. Is that sin? In a certain way it is. It's because like a person expected something from you, and because you're not going to neglect and care for that person, you're just like, forget you. Right? So the same thing in a kind of dating relationship. If a person expects something out of you, right, and if you just like totally disregard that, you're disregarding that person. Right? So that's a sin. Because you should respect all people, right? Love all people. But then there's also the sin against marriage. Right? And you don't want to confuse these two. When you're married, right, there's a reason why we do our marriages publicly, right? And there's also a reason why, at least in the West, we say, does anyone object to this person being married, right? And then when people celebrate with you, it's because when you enter that covenant, people are your witnesses. In the U.S. too, when you do a marriage certificate, you have to have a witness, right? And that witness says, I was there when this person covenanted and made this promise to the other person. So in marriage, you say, I will not cheat on this person. I will not do certain things, and stuff like that, right? And so you can say that, like, you can't do these things against me. Not the same for dating. For dating, you don't do that. You don't do like, who is a witness to my dating relationship? I need you to make sure that you know that we're dating, da-da-da, right? It's not in the same way, all right? It's not in the same way. So we have to be really clear on this. Distinction between sin versus the person or marriage. And I would say this is just like, don't monopolize the other person. Let me just encourage you guys to continue to have friendships, right? When you're dating, encourage people who are dating to continue to have friendships with opposite sex. I saw this a lot in high school. I guess not in college as much, but in high school it's like if your friend dated somebody, they would like disappear off the face of the earth. Right? They would just like only hang out with that person, and like they can no longer talk to you because you're like the opposite sex or something, or like that's bad. That's not healthy. Okay? All right, let's talk another one now. Physical. What are some physical boundaries? Physical boundaries. Let's go. These should be relatively simple. Let's talk about this side over here. Jolene, what do you think?
Not to be too friendly with touching. like, I don't know, sitting too close together or. No sex. So I'm gonna get that one out of the way.
No sex.
I was waiting for that.
Okay, this was actually kind of important. Who remembers the Bill Clinton trial?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Jeremy.
Somebody, okay. So, wait, was somebody born in the 90s? Anyone here born in the 90s?
Not my sister.
Okay. You were born in the 90s? Okay. Okay, so this guy named Bill Clinton. He was the president of the United States before George W. Bush. All right. This is worth saying because in his trial, he said, like, I didn't have sexual relations with that woman. Right? And I remember watching this as a kid, and I was like, oh, I believe him. Like, he didn't have sex with that woman. Right? And then it was like a bunch of months later, right, that like some more evidence got out. And so he apparently didn't have intercourse with that woman, right, Monica Lewinsky, but he did have like other sexual relations with her. Right? And so there's this whole debate on what sex is. Right? And so the mid-90s, like this whole debate on what is actually sex, right? If it's not just intercourse. That's the thing with the Christians. Is sex only intercourse? Look at what Jesus says. Is sex only intercourse? Is adultery only intercourse? Right? Because Jesus says if you lust after a woman in your heart, you commit adultery. Right? So when we say no sex, I think there's a lot of things with that. I think one of them is huge. It's thought life. That's what Jesus talks about. If you have lusted for a woman in your heart, you have committed adultery. Okay? I'm trying to think if I want to write out explicit terms or not. I'm not going to. I'm just going to say things leading to sex. All right. And honestly, you know what? I think that there's a level of you need to kind of define this for your own relationship, right? What are things leading towards sex? Right, and you really need to kind of to find that out and to kind of flesh out like this is the things that we want to. All right, I'll tell you some of the things that me and Carmen believed while we were dating. Right, don't beat each other's beds. Okay, I know some Christian people think that's okay. I don't think that's okay. All right, to be in each other's beds is not an okay thing. Like, oh, I'm gonna take a nap. I'm gonna just fall asleep in your bed, like under your sheets. Right, or like if people who do that, or like and stuff like like cuddling together in a bed. All right. If you think about it, it's like, oh, it's just hugging, whatever. I think that's over the boundary for physically. All right. It's things leading to sex. But I think this whole idea of, again, you're not married, right? Sex really is reserved for marriage. I know. I think everyone in this room believes that. Most of the people on campuses don't believe that anymore. Okay. But let me say this. Thought life. This is kind of where it all starts. Right? This is why Jesus says, if you have lust for a woman in your heart, you commit adultery. Do not let your thought life go there. Okay, and be honest. I mean, this is why guys have accountability groups. Right? If your thought life is going there, right, whether you're single or you're dating or whatever it is, right, don't let it go there. Right? Be accountable with your thought life. And this is why I'm really serious. Like, if you're dating somebody, or I think about dating somebody, tell someone about it and be accountable. Right? I know some people are like, oh, I don't want everyone to know about my dating relationship. I don't want people to know about my business. Look, if you don't know about your business, you can be doing heck of shady things and no one will know. And some of you are like, well, I don't need accountability. You need accountability. You need accountability. If you look at like some of the scandals in the church today, it's because there's certain Christian leaders thinking like, I'm such a good Christian leader, I'm above accountability. No one is above accountability. Right? No one is above accountability. That's why that's probably the reason why I like Facebook, where they change your status, like, hey, this person's dating this person. Hey, you know what? Guess what? Now 1,000 people are holding you accountable. Or like 500. Some of your friends are not Christian. All right, that's actually a good thing. That's a really good thing. All right, especially when you're dating. Be accountable to people. All right, let's do other ones. There's some other physical ones I want to talk about. What are some other physical boundaries? Things you should not be doing together. Count group right there. Lily. Kissing? Okay, yeah, I'll talk about this one. I have a lot of good friends who didn't kiss before they got married. Let me reference this. This is a good time to talk about this. Conscience. Don't go get each other's consciences. Okay? I know a lot of godly people who think kissing is okay in dating. I know a lot of godly people who think it's not okay. If you think, so if you're the guy, if you think kissing is okay in dating relationship, and she doesn't, don't kiss. All right, don't kiss. And don't try to push her to kiss. All right? Again, this is another principle in the Testament. Do not let that person go against their conscience. All right? Do not let that person go against their conscience. Because if you do, all of a sudden that person doesn't know what's right and what's wrong anymore. Or all of a sudden their convictions are like all over the place. All right? You basically only go as far as that other person's like conscience. So that person's like, say they're not okay with like, in the movie theater putting an arm around them. Don't do it. All right, just don't do it. Whatever that other person's not going to, don't try to push them, especially in a dating relationship. Don't try to push the other person. Okay. So I have a lot of friends. You know, when I went to the wedding, the first time they kissed was at the altar. Right. And people ask me like, would you recommend that? Is that a good thing? I'm like, for them, it's a good thing. And honestly, for them, I encourage them. If you're going to say we're not going to kiss, don't kiss. And like seriously, this is like really important. Don't keep moving the boundary. All right. Some people do that. Some people like start dating like, okay, no kissing, and then they kiss. Like, okay, let's move the boundary a little bit. All right. Like, now let's say no cuddling. Okay, cuddling's pretty good. Let's move the boundary a little bit. Like, no cuddling in bed. Right. That's really, really dangerous. All right. I'm saying that right now. That's really, really, really dangerous. And again, I think that's why accountability is important, especially in the beginning of the relationship. Especially at the beginning, whatever you say you're going to do, tell somebody. All right, tell your small group, right? Tell your disciple, all that stuff. Tell them, like, hey, look, these are the boundaries we set in the very beginning. Keep us accountable to that. Now that we've made it public, now that the church knows about it, keep us accountable to that. All right. Let's do one more. What else? As you guys are thinking, what else is the physical boundary? Jeremy, what do you think?
Like spending too much time with each other?
Okay. So spending too much time, this goes up here again, right? Spending time, and also, I would also say just appropriate context.
Forgot.
Right. It's hard to write. What do I mean by that? Don't treat the other person like a spouse when you're spending time out. Okay? It's kind of interesting. When me and Carmen were on our honeymoon, right, on the cruise, like people are like, oh, is this your girlfriend? Right? I think people think they're really young, right? And like, I'm like, you should be taking cruises with your girlfriend. You know, like I know that's not obvious now, right? But I'm like, you should be like a week alone with a girl who's not your wife. And it's kind of funny that's like it's in our thinking now, right? That like it's okay to like go on a cruise with your girlfriend, or like it's okay to like travel like somewhere with your girlfriend like alone, all right? I need to say this because this is in scripture, okay? Mary and Joseph, right? Mary and Joseph traveled while they were engaged, right? You know that because this is in all the Gospels. So you can use that and be like, well, they traveled together. Why can't we? I think heart intention has a lot to do with it. Why do people want to travel alone while they're dating?
Because they don't want to travel with other people.
Why? The question is why.
Alone time.
Yeah.
Right? It's alone time. All right. Basically, you just want a great level of intimacy. Right? I mean, it's kind of like on your honeymoon. Do you want to honeymoon with other people? Probably not. At least some people might. Okay, but the great majority of people do not want to honeymoon. All right, like, hey, let's go with their families and stuff. All right. I mean, that's okay. I mean, honestly, because that's in a marriage relationship, you should have intimacy, right? You should have some time where you just you and the other person. How does that make sense in a dating relationship? Right? How does it help you get more prepared for marriage? Because honestly, again, you have to think about this like, you know, if you don't get married to that person, you marry someone else. That's a really painful experience, right? That's a really, really painful experience to know that, like, or to see that, you know, your wife and like some of her pictures from college, like she went out to this trip with this guy, right? Like a week by themselves, right? Even if nothing happened, right? I mean, that's just it's inappropriate context, all right, for a dating relationship. And honestly, I honestly think that this is one of the big ones for our generation. All right, it's really easy if you're in college, if you have like a job and all that stuff, to like, oh yeah, I have money for a cruise, I have money for like a trip to whatever and do whatever, right? But seriously, appropriate context. And this is why, I mean, you can say like, oh, the church is going to judge you and stuff. But honestly, this is why you should love the church. Because the church is going to keep you accountable. Because if you are plugged into a small group, if you have a Christian community around you, right, they should tell you, hey, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good for you to take a cruise with another guy who's not your husband, right, alone. Right? And honestly, you can just be like, oh, stop judging me. Right? Why can't you let me have freedom? But sin is a serious thing. All right? I want you guys to feel that the weight of sin and the taint of death in sin, right? It's not worth it. Right? We are holy and set apart for God, right? Because sin is appalling in God's eyes, right? It leads to death. So we should be thankful for accountability for that, right? We should seek holiness in our relationship so that we can continue to live out as Christians, right? To live out in life and not have the sin of death around us or in our relationships. Okay. So that's one part I wanted to knock out, some of the boundaries. And I encourage you guys to continue talking about this in your small groups, your disciplers, things like that. But the other side of this, right, because holiness is not just what you don't do, but it's also what you do. Do. Holiness is also what you do. I want you guys to break up into your groups again, right? And talk about what are some, let me think. I guess I have to say positive. Some positive or Christ-honoring. Positive or Christ-honoring things that you should be pursuing or doing in a dating relationship / married relationship. I think there's certain things you can do as a couple that you cannot do as a small group. Okay? So let's talk about those. Specific things that you can do in a dating relationship. All right? Specific things that you should kind of shoot for when you have a family. To kind of do in a family relationship. All right, go ahead. Break up your small groups.